Miami's streak-breaking win over Florida State has been tempered by a significant loss in the running game. The U announced Sunday that Mark Walton suffered an unspecified injury to his right ankle in Saturday's 2,420 win over Florida State. As a result of the injury, the running back will undergo surgery at an unspecified point in the future. While the school stated in its release that a timetable for Walton's return has not been determined, head coach Mark Richt confirmed that the injury is severe enough that it will cost the junior the remainder of the 2017 season. Walton originally suffered the injury 2 weeks ago against Toledo. In the win over FSU, he aggravated it enough that surgery is now required. Through 4 games, Walton is easily the Hurricanes' leading rusher with 428 yards. His 3 rushing touchdowns are tied for the team lead. The man he's tied with in that latter category, Travis Homer, is also second on the team with 212 yards on the ground and can be expected to shoulder a more significant portion of the running game load. A handful of teams you expect to be bowl eligible this past weekend officially clinched their eligibility to play in a postseason game. This means Alabama, Clemson, Penn State, Georgia, Washington, and Washington State are now officially in the running for the college football playoff after each clinched the required 6th win to become bowl eligible for the 2017 season. San Diego State can also start focusing on their postseason outlook after picking up their 6th win of the season. This week a few more teams can join the party with a win. Among the more notable names vying for postseason eligibility this week includes TCU, the new Big 12 leader in the clubhouse after this past weekend, Wisconsin starring at a possible 120 record, and NC State. The Wolfpack have won 6 straight since a season-opening loss to South Carolina. At 51, the Auburn Tigers are also 1 win away from clinching their bowl eligibility, and they would become the 3rd team from the SEC to do so. Ohio State can also join the fun with a win at Nebraska, which will also make Nebraska's chances of reaching the postseason that much more difficult. At 51, the Auburn Tigers are also 1 win away from clinching their bowl eligibility, and they would become the 3rd team from the SEC to do so. Ohio State 51 can also join the fun with a win at Nebraska, which will also make Nebraska's chances of reaching the postseason that much more difficult. USC is also in the 51 club and gets to host Utah this week in a key Pac-12 South Division matchup. Virginia Tech is 51 as well, but the Hokies are off this week before getting back on the field next week against North Carolina. Notre Dame will also have to wait a week for their chance with a bye week to prepare for a game against USC in South Bend. Kentucky is also off this week with a chance to wrap up their postseason eligibility the following week at Mississippi State. A few other teams looking to lock down their eligibility this week include Navy at Memphis, USF vs. Cincinnati. On the flip side, UMass and Charlotte each at 06 can officially be eliminated from postseason contention with a loss this weekend. With Missouri moving the ball toward the red zone with about 20 seconds to play, Tigers wide receiver Jamon Moore got up from the end of the play and had the ball knocked out of his hands by a Kentucky defender. The intent was pretty obvious, as the clock was running and the football now needed to be recovered by the official as the precious seconds ticked away. Instead of having roughly 16 seconds left to play, Missouri only had 3 seconds left on the clock after spiking the football. After reviewing the play in the SEC offices, the conference issued a statement confirming the officials on the field missed the action that should have stopped the clock. Had that action been seen by the officials in real time, the clock would have been stopped at approximately 0.16 seconds and restarted on the ready for the play signal, the SEC statement said. With 16 seconds on the clock, Missouri could have potentially run 2 or 3 more plays to go for a game-tying score to set up a potential go-ahead extra point. Follow it, Kevin Onk FB. Just like the coaches poll before it, the AP Top 25 had some shuffling to do this week after a couple of top 10 teams took losses on their home field on Saturday. But at the top, it remains a toy team race between Alabama and Clemson. Number 1 Alabama received 43 first-place votes to continue to stay comfortably ahead of number 2 Clemson, with the Tigers picking up 18 first-place votes. No other team received first-place consideration this week, with number 12 Oklahoma down 9 spots and number 17 Michigan down 10 spots dropping this week. That led to number 8 Washington State and number 10 Auburn wiggling their way up into the top 10 this week. Number 3 Penn State moved up 1 spot in the AP poll to earn its highest app ranking since reaching 3rd in the 2008 season. Number 4 Georgia and number 5 Washington each moved up 1 spot in the AP poll this week as well. Number 6 TCU moved up 2 spots, as did number 7 Wisconsin. Number 9 Ohio State also moved up a spot and remains in front of the only team to beat them head-to-head this year, Oklahoma. Number 16 Notre Dame moved up 5 spots in this week's poll following a road win at North Carolina, as the Irish likely benefited from seeing a team they defeated number 21 Michigan State crack the top 25 with a win over a top 10 program. Notre Dame also gets more benefit of the doubt for a close loss to Georgia earlier in the year as the Bulldogs continue to roll. In addition to Michigan State, number 23 Stanford, number 24 Texas Tech, and number 25 Navy all appear in the poll after not being ranked last week. Here is this week's AP Top 25, with first-place votes noted: Alabama 43, Clemson 18, Penn State, Georgia, Washington, TCU, Wisconsin, Washington State, Ohio State, Auburn, Miami, Oklahoma, USC, Oklahoma State, Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, Michigan, USF, San Diego State, NC State, Michigan State, UCF, Stanford, Texas Tech. Navy AP poll by conference: Big Ten 5, ACC 4, Big 12 4, Pac-12 4, AAC 3, SEC 3, MWC 1. Kevin McGuire at KevinOnkFB, October 8, 2017. Follow at KevinOnkFB. A couple of losses by top 10 teams in the coaches poll led to a bit of a shakeup this week, but number 1 Alabama and number 2 Clemson remain the top 2 teams in the land for another week without much debate. After Oklahoma and Michigan took losses at home, though, there was some room for teams to move into new positions in the top 10 this week. Number 3 Penn State, number 4 Washington, and number 5 Georgia all moved up 1 spot in the coaches poll this week. Number 6 Wisconsin jumped up 2 spots and number 7 TCU moved up 3. Number 8 Ohio State inched up 1 spot and is now ranked 4 spots ahead of number 12 Oklahoma despite a head-to-head loss in Columbus earlier this season. Number 9 Washington State and number 10 Miami each moved into the top 10 this week at the expense of number 12 Oklahoma and number 16 Michigan. The Sooners and Wolverines each dropped 9 spots in the poll this week, matching for the biggest drop in terms of how many spots they each fell. 3 schools fell out of the coaches poll: Louisville, Florida, and West Virginia, to allow some more room for newcomers to this week's poll. Number 22 Michigan State surged up by rising 14 spots in the overall ballot count this week. Number 24 Navy and number 25 Stanford each moved into the poll this week as well. Here is this week's coaches poll, with first-place votes noted: Alabama 57, Clemson 8, Penn State, Washington, Georgia, Wisconsin, TCU, Ohio State, Washington State, Miami, Auburn, Oklahoma, USC, Oklahoma State, USF, Michigan, Virginia Tech, San Diego State, Notre Dame, NC State, UCF, Michigan State, Utah, Navy. Stanford coaches poll by conference: Big Ten 5, Pac-12 5, ACC 4, AAC 3, Big 12 3, SEC 3, MWC 1. Kevin McGuire at KevinOnkFB, October 8, 2017. Follow at KevinOnkFB.